Continuing with our power ranking series, we're up to number 13, where I have placed the orcs. Now, the orcs were, I believe, one of the first codexes updated in 7th edition. And orcs are a little bit, they've got some updates, but for the most part, they seem to be more or less the kind of orcs that we expect. They're swarms. They're also very clumsy, so their weapon skill, ballistic skill are still low. But they actually do have some different weapons. While I can't remember everything, their biggest thing is their ability to really be a big swarm and just drown you in a lot of dice, whether it's shooting or in the assault phase. Now, orc players, you can correct me if I'm wrong, do think they have a couple of psychers. They don't have the greatest psychic ability, but really, does it matter much about psychics? Their version of Space Marine Devastators are actually, I think it's the Death Guns, are really, really good. The biggest question for orcs is, we know they have air, but it's not great. We know they have some armor. Again, it's not great, and especially since I think one of their armor is basically their version of captured Lehman Russes that they've converted. So you get at least, if I'm correct, you'll get at least one AV-13. That's just in the front. But they don't, other than just being able to have a sheer volume of dice, do they really have anything that can deal with your 2-up armor, 3-up invuln that you get from Terminators and Thunderhammer Storm Shields? That's really the big question I have for orcs. Do they have... Now, what really actually they do have that does make a very big impact is their super heavy walkers. I'm blanking on the name. No, it's the Stampa. If you can work in a Stampa with a couple of heavy-duty weaponries, especially for anti-infantry, then you are in a pretty good place. Their def cans, I think it's def cans, or at least they're equivalent to the Space Marine Dreadnoughts. They are something to not really sneeze at. They're good. So you got really a good mix between being able to have a lot of dice thrown, some units that are decent in close combat, that are decent in shooting, but really you also get hurt because orcs are essentially dumber than a box of rocks. Hence, by their weapon skill, their ballistic skill. I think the only ones that might be worse than orcs, as far as weapon skill and ballistic skill, are the Imperial Guard and Necrons. Well, not necessarily Necrons. Necrons would be worse as far as initiative is concerned. But now, starting at, even though we're at 13 in this list, we're starting to get to armies that they're not really great, but they're not really horrible either. They're kind of like that mid-range. Really, you get mid-range till you hit really the top 6, top 7. And when you have they're big things, like the Stampa, that you can especially stick, I believe it's goblins in there, that can repair. Boy, it makes it really difficult to take down. All you need to do is give it some shields. Actually, I think it might have shields on it. Which makes the Imperial Knight look like bad. And especially if you put them side by side, man, the Stampa's way bigger than the Imperial Knight. In fact, it's probably on the same level as a Reaver Titan. And that would be fun to see, a Reaver Titan versus a Stampa. Depending on the loadouts. Maybe even a Warhound would be a fun matchup for a Stampa. But we're digressing. So here, this is a short video. I shouldn't say it's short. But really there's, you've got everything, volume of dice. You've got certain elements that have mobility. Like their version of bikes, or bikas, or Orc language is very difficult to try and remember for things like this. So you got some mobility, but really you have the volume of dice. You have the ability to field probably hundreds of models. You could easily, in one list, maybe get close to 100 models on the table. And there's also some HQs that are just downright nasty. The war bosses, I think there may be even some named war bosses. I don't know if Gaskill is one of them. But Orc players, what do you think? Should you guys be higher? Do you think you're lower in comparison to what we have so far on this list? Am I missing something that you think should have been factored in comparison to what's left? Of course, you'll have to wait for the rest of this countdown to really come out and criticize and say, well, Kyle, you should have ranked Orcs higher than at least these armies. So let's start a discussion, Orc players. How do you feel Orcs truly stand up compared to what we have so far? And maybe even based on what's yet to come. If you're keeping track, I'm sure you know who all's left on this countdown.